I can't have you on the show without talking about purpose and meaning and passion. And in the book, you write that to live life as you would like requires knowing what you want in the first place. What is the link between self and having meaning or purpose?
You might have had people on here that talked about this already. In psychology, there's research on meaning in life or the experience of meaning in life. And in that research, people talk about three, and people use different language, but here I'll just give the three maybe most common components that are necessary to have the experience of meaning in life. So one is coherence, right? You have to be coherent. The world has to feel coherent. That's one, coherence. The other one is purpose. So you have to get up and there has to be something that you want to do. Like these are generally thought of as goals, right? Like you get up and there's something to do. There's some reason to get up in the morning, get out of bed. And the third one is significance, which means that there's something more than the present moment that matters, right? That you matter in some way. So people call significance, some people call it mattering. So those are the three things. So it's coherence, it's purpose, and then it's significance. And again, you can think of significance as mattering. Those are the three things. So what does that have to do with the self? So I think the self is of primary importance for two of those. So first, coherence. Without a self, there cannot be the experience of meaning because that meaning has to attach to you, right? You want your life to feel meaningful. There's a you at the center of that. So you have to have a self for that part. So that's the easiest one. Then purpose, I don't is that one is like the least tightly tied to self, but I think this one is we haven't talked about yet that I find really interesting. Significance to me is about time, meaning like, do you matter? Will you matter when you're gone, even? And the self is interesting in that it can kind of function like a time machine. So when you have a self, you can project back into the future by your feeling of connection to, I don't know, your grandparents, or your great grandparents, or the land your ancestors were from, right? People have this sense of connection to a history that quite predated them. That's interesting, right? So you can feel connected to the past, but you can also project yourself into the future. Maybe the most common way to think about that right now is the country you're from. So people want to feel like they're contributing to their nation in some way, or they feel not everyone, but a lot of people feel deeply connected to their nation. And you can think about that connection as a way to outlive your physical self. Because when you die, your nation will still be here. So anything you contributed to the nation will continue to live. And so the self, by allowing you to project into the future, allows you to have a feeling of significance. It makes you feel like you matter. I matter. This thing I did mattered. And not mattered just right now, but mattered in some bigger way. And so without that sense of self and being able to connect to something bigger than you, it'd be hard to have a sense of significance or mattering. And it'd be hard to have meaning in life. So I think the self is like a time machine, which is, I don't know. It's something about that I love, right? Like you yourself can continue to live even after you're gone. And there's also actually research on this that suggests that when you're afraid of death, you try to hold on tightly to identities that allow you to live beyond your death, like connections to your country, for example.
Well, an interesting interview I did was with Benjamin Hardy, and he has a book on the science of future self, but he also has one he wrote with Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. And it's a really interesting concept because what they're saying is that when we measure ourselves, so often we're doing it in the gap. And that is, we're trying to compare ourselves to other people that we see versus the gain is when we compare ourselves to our past self and the gains that we've made between the two. But I think, and I'm just as guilty as it is anyone, it's hard not to compare yourself to others. It's hard for me not to want to compare myself to Jay Shetty because he's killing it. But when you do that, you're comparing yourself to a false expectation of someone who has been doing something longer than you, who has a completely different approach, different identity themselves. So it is a risky thing to do.
Yeah, this is another way of us knowing ourselves may not be the most healthy, but even that imaginary relationship, you're making sense of yourself. And I think this is why it's hard to do it, right? There's this constant desire to try to situate yourself in the social world.